Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we streamline complex investigations, contradictory sources, and, well, decades of frustration into clear, concise knowledge. Today, we are wading into perhaps the most notorious cold case in American history, the 1996 murder of 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey.
It's a case that is just, it's famous for its impossible contradictions. You have this elaborate kidnapping staging inside the home.
Right inside the home of this wealthy, very public family.
And yet the most definitive, objective forensic evidence we have points squarely at an unknown intruder.
So our mission today, drawing from sources that cover everything from the investigative failures to the current high-tech pursuit of justice, it's to understand how those early mistakes, those procedural missteps, created a decades-long impasse.
And how the only viable path forward now seems to rest entirely on the shoulders of rapidly evolving DNA technology.
Yeah.
We're really examining a foundational moment in American criminal procedure, a masterclass in how not to handle a high-profile crime scene.
And at the same time, how scientific advancements almost 30 years later are being called on to correct those catastrophic early mistakes.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should start where all the public scrutiny began, with the Ramseys themselves. JonBenét was the daughter of John Ramsey, who was the very successful president of Access Graphics, and Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen. She'd been Miss West Virginia in 1977.
JonBenét was sort of following in her mother's footsteps, right? Winning titles like Little Miss Colorado.
Exactly. And that whole world, the child beauty pageant circuit, it immediately drew public fascination and, frankly, a lot of revulsion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There were accusations that the parents were exploiting her, which, whether that's true or not, it instantly created this cloud of suspicion around the family.
A cloud that would only get thicker after the tragedy.
Much thicker.
So the timeline starts on the morning of December 26, 1996, the day after Christmas. Patsy finds the sprawling, handwritten ransom note on the kitchen stairs.
And she reports JonBenét missing. Calls 911 immediately.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the sheer audacity and just the bizarre nature of that note.
It was 2.5, maybe 3 pages long, which is that's unusually long for a ransom note.
And it was written on Patsy's notepad.
With a Sharpie pen that was found right there in the Ramsey kitchen. That detail alone, it instantly suggests intimate access or, deliberate staging.
And the demand amount, $118,000. It's such an oddly specific, almost petty figure for kidnapping the daughter of a major executive.
That's a crucial point. Investigators theorized that the amount matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus.
Or maybe referenced a liability of his, something listed on his computer for like $11,118,000.
Either way, it points to intimate financial knowledge by whoever wrote it. A forensic document examiner, Brenda Anderson, she strongly believed the note was staged.
Why?
Because of its length and its surprisingly calm, almost conversational tone. It just didn't read like a real demand.
The story then tragically shifts less than 8 hours after that 911 call.
Yeah. John Ramsey searches the basement and finds JonBenét's body in the wine cellar.
The cause of death was truly horrific. It involved dual lethal mechanisms, asphyxia by strangulation, and a severe 8.5-inch skull fracture from blunt trauma.
And the implements used were just as disturbing, just as personalized as that ransom note. The garrote used to strangle her was constructed from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush.
And the butt end of that very same brush was found where?
Among Patsy's art supplies.
Which just adds to that heavy circumstantial heat on the family. Experts also noted that the specific knot used in the garrote required, I think the quote was, special knowledge of knots held by sailors or other experts.
Which immediately cast suspicion on John Ramsey.
Right.
Because of his considerable experience with sailing.
It's a direct link. Then we also have the famous pineapple clue.
Right. Undigested pineapple was found in her stomach during the autopsy.
Suggesting she ate it hours after she was supposedly put to bed. And a bowl of pineapple and a spoon were found on the kitchen table.
But neither parent recalled feeding it to her.
So that raises the immediate paradox.
Yeah.
Who gave the child a snack late at night? It implies a degree of familiarity or trust with the person involved.
Absolutely.
This case is famous because every single piece of this staging evidence, the note written in the house, the garrote from household items, that specific knot, the pineapple, it all seems to scream insider knowledge.
It does. But we have to hold that idea right alongside the second part of the story. The complete failure of the initial investigation.
Exactly.
The failure of the initial investigation is, it's a procedural case study taught in law enforcement today on how contamination can just ruin a case.
The Boulder Police Department, the
Right.
BPD, they initially treated it just as a kidnapping.
Not a murder scene.
Yeah.
And they failed drastically to secure the house. Friends and family were allowed to just move throughout the home,
Contaminating everything.
potentially destroying or contaminating critical evidence.
Yeah. That contamination proved lethal for the case. The most critical mistake was a detective actually asking John Ramsey and a friend to search the house,
Which led him directly to the body.
and further compromised the scene when he moved JonBenét, removed the duct tape from her mouth. You can't recreate the integrity of a scene after that.
No. The criticism was intense, and it came from all directions. The former BPD chief, Mark Beckner, he later admitted the scene was mishandled.
He specifically regretted not securing the scene immediately, right?
Yeah.
And the error of letting John and Patsy go without formal interviews right away.
They retained lawyers and weren't formally interviewed again for 5 long months.
Meanwhile, you have John Ramsey publicly saying the police were grossly incompetent, that they refused experienced help.
Including homicide detectives offered by the larger Denver department.
Yeah.
And while the police were so focused on the parents, which statistically is often the right place to start, they missed, or maybe overlooked, crucial early physical evidence pointing to an intruder.
Like what?
Well, there were unidentified footprints, including an unmatched high-tech hiking boot print found near the body.
Okay.
And, maybe even more importantly, a pubic hair found on the blanket wrapping JonBenét that did not belong to any family member.
Okay, wait, let's step back a second and just force these two realities to collide.
Yeah.
You have a specific garrote knot that suggests a sailor, John Ramsey, and a ransom note implying intimate financial knowledge. How does that square with a pubic hair and a high-tech boot print from a total stranger?
That is the core conflict that has fueled this case for 30 years.
Does it suggest the staging was designed not just to confuse, but maybe to specifically frame John?
That's one of the primary theories. And to add another layer, the duct tape and the cord used in the murder. They were not definitively located in the Ramsey house.
So they weren't just standard household materials.
Seems not. There was also a previously broken basement window, which was suggested as a potential entry point for an outsider.
So the police failed to find the intruder, but the DA still had to answer to this massive public suspicion, which leads us right into the messy legal phase that followed.
And these procedural failures had huge consequences when the case moved to the legal sphere. The case was in total legal limbo for years.
A grand jury was convened in 1998, and in 1999, they actually voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey.
They did, on charges related to child abuse resulting in death.
But here is where the political and legal nuance comes in. The Boulder DA, Alex Hunter, he refused to sign that indictment. Why was that decision so impactful?
That decision was huge. The grand jury, they operate on a standard of probable cause.
Meaning there's a good chance a crime happened and they were involved?
Right. But DA Hunter realized he couldn't meet the burden of proof required for a conviction at trial, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. He argued there just wasn't enough evidence to prove guilt.
And that distinction, probable cause versus beyond a reasonable doubt, is what kept the indictment secret until 2013.
Effectively prolonging the cloud of suspicion over the family without ever giving them the chance to clear their names in court. It was a legal stalemate, really.
A stalemate engineered by the lack of clean, uncompromised evidence.
Exactly. And that stalemate lasted until evolving technology forced a major turning point. We had to jump forward nearly a decade to 2008 and the widespread use of highly sensitive touch DNA technology.
Yes, this provided the most powerful objective piece of evidence that really pushed back against those internal staging theories.
What did they find?
Trace male DNA was found on JonBenét's underwear and her long johns. And critically, this DNA did not match any family member or any suspect tested.
That is the definitive objective evidence. In
Yep.
fact, based on this DNA, DA Mary Lacey publicly exonerated the Ramsey family in 2008.
She's stating clearly that the DNA belonged to the perpetrator, right?
She did, effectively establishing the unknown intruder theory as the leading possibility.
But despite having a definitive male profile, the case hasn't been solved, which brings us to the core technical bottleneck.
That's right. A DNA expert, Mitch Morrissey, he explained the challenge. The sample is what's called a 50-50 mixture.
What does that mean exactly?
It's crucial. It's not just a small amount. It's the victim's DNA and the perpetrator's DNA layered directly on top of each other. Think of it like a blended audio file, trying to separate those two unique signals clearly enough to get a clean sequence for matching. That's the bottleneck.
So current standard validated technology still struggles with that.
It does, and that technical difficulty means the police have had to exercise immense patience.
Though, even with the DNA evidence, former Chief Beckner, while he acknowledged its importance, he expressed caution. He said exonerating the Ramseys based solely on this one single compromised piece of evidence might be absurd.
Which just highlights how messy the crime scene was to begin with.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture for you, the listener, it demonstrates that even the most definitive evidence can be rendered partially unusable if the initial scene is contaminated.
And it forces law enforcement to wait years, even decades, for technology to finally catch up to the mistake.
That long wait, though, it appears to be drawing to a close. Today, the Boulder Police Department remains deeply committed.
The murder is still an active investigation. They've followed up on over, 21,000 tips?
21,016 tips and interviewed more than 1,000 people.
The biggest recent action came in late 2023. The BPD convened the Colorado Cold Case Review Team, pulling in the FBI, CBI, the DA's office.
Their mission was an independent assessment leveraging updated technology. They ended up digitizing over 1 million pages of evidence.
Wow.
The BPD is now reviewing that team's recommendations, but they aren't public. They're citing the need to preserve the integrity of the active investigation.
It's clear DNA testing is still a focal point, but they're waiting for proven and validated technology to test the limited samples they have left.
Which brings us to the strongest current push for closure. Jon Ramsey, who still thinks about his daughter every single day, is actively advocating for one specific technology.
Investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG.
The same tech they used to catch the Golden State Killer.
Right. For those unfamiliar, IgG involves uploading the unknown DNA profile to public DNA databases to find distant relatives of that unknown male profile.
Instead of just waiting for a direct match in a criminal database like CODIS, Jon Ramsey believes this is the best and most likely way to get a solution and finally close this traumatic chapter for his family.
So the key distinction here is that the BPD is publicly hesitant, likely because of that really complicated 50-50 mixture issue.
While Jon Ramsey is demanding immediate action.
Yeah. They're balancing the urgency of solving a 30-year-old case against the risk of consuming the limited, compromised sample on a process that might not even yield a clean profile.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The JonBenét Ramsey case is the ultimate example of tension. You have the intensely intimate circumstantial evidence. The pineapple, the custom groat, the handwritten note.
Versus the singular piece of objective modern evidence, the unidentified male DNA. We now know definitively that those early investigative failures are directly responsible for the decades of legal difficulty.
This deep dive really shows that solving cold cases, it all comes down to not just finding new evidence, but on technological patience and proper procedural handling from the very beginning.
The contamination of 1996 still dictates the limitations of forensic science in 2025.
So the ultimate question science has to resolve is whether the identity of the unknown intruder, once revealed by investigative genetic genealogy, will finally prove the Ramsey family was right all along, that it was a total stranger who slipped in and out of their home.
Or whether that individual will turn out to be someone known to them, proving that the staging, the knot in the note, were not just confusing contradictions, but were part of a single deeply personal tragedy. That final resolution hinges on just one tiny, complicated strand of DNA.